They want you to change your name. Archie Leach doesn't cut it. Anything come to mind?
Cary Grant.
Now, isn't that a beautiful name? Cut! The name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Weekend box office. Cary Grant is a character. I have to be very careful about how he's perceived.
This is the dreamiest guy in the world we're talking about.
You're not going to break my heart, are you?
Probably.
I walked into that one.
I ain't going home tomorrow. I'm gonna stay here and I'm gonna be a star.
What accent you got, kid?
English.
Okay, thank you. Next.
I spent most of my life wondering who I was supposed to be.
You'll find that we're all saints in this town, my dear, aren't we, Cary?
Dyan, why did you think the time is right now to release Archie?
Jeff Pope, the writer, came to me 10 years ago. It's been that long in the making. He had read my book, Dear Cary, and he said, I think we should make a movie. I said, let's talk about it. So we've been talking about it for 10 years, and now it's coming to the screen, but in a 4-hour miniseries form, which allowed Jeff to really elaborate and get into his life.
Oh my goodness, we learned so much about you and Cary Grant. It seemed to me, based on the film, that your relationship with Cary Grant was sort of doomed from the beginning because he wanted you to adhere to the old ways, but you were a liberated woman of the 60s. Is that accurate?
I wish I'd been more liberated because he made me quit my acting career. I said no in the beginning, and he pursued me for about 8 months. And I said no, because my little voice said, don't go there. He was older than my father. He'd been married 3 times. I thought, I don't need that. And what does he like about me? I couldn't understand it. But he was a very charming man. He knew how to get into you. He knew how to infiltrate himself, and he did. And it was really quite extraordinary in the beginning. We had so much fun.
Yeah.
We did enjoy our lives until we got married, and it changed.
Isn't that funny?
Radically.
Yeah.
Radically changed the minute we got married.
Wow. That's a cautionary tale.
You've heard that happens when people get married.
I have. Yeah.
He just couldn't bear the idea of family unity. It brought up too much pain about his past as a little boy when he was completely abandoned, had no one.
That is so tragic. I mean, his father tried to sell him at one point. Is that one of the reasons he seemed so friendless? He was afraid of people?
Well, he was abandoned. Nobody wanted him. He had to work hard to make people in the world love him. And he did. He was
didn't he?
the biggest star in the world.
Yes. Yes,
People
indeed.
loved him. But
people loved who they thought he was.
that's a good way of saying it.
That's right. Now, Jason, you're playing this iconic figure who we just described as being so important on the world stage. You had to get a lot of things right. The posture, that incredible posture of his, that stride, the vibe, the look. Did you feel that it was a huge responsibility given Cary Grant?
Yeah, well, initially I didn't want to do it. I just thought it was a terrible idea. Why would anybody set themselves up for guaranteed failure? But then I read Jeff's script. Jeff Pope has a long history in Britain of bringing real life events to the screen. Americans may know him from Philomena and Stan and Ollie and things like that, but he's been doing stuff ripped from the headlines for decades. And when I saw his name on the script, I thought, well, he wouldn't be so idiotic as to try and recreate Cary Grant. And sure enough, he doesn't. I'm playing the man who shuts the front door when he's come off the set. I'm playing the man the world didn't see. And the reason it's called Archie, the show, is that Archie Leach really defined him, this small child who was unloved and abandoned and abused and carried that damage into the rest of his life and really carried such a lot of rage and self-hatred. And I thought Dyan's book unlocked that so brilliantly that inside the marriage, as a father of 2 daughters, I found it terrifying reading the book. And I kept on apologizing to you for what you had to go through all those years ago. It just seemed, that seemed playable to me. To play the world's sexiest, most beautiful man would be a professionally and personally suicidal thing. But to play the man who got off stage and was someone entirely different made sense to me. Because I play lots of tough guys. And I would be terrified by my daughters in the event of something violent. So I knew what being the opposite of the public image was.
There's an incredible scene where he takes a child's food off the child's plate, dumps it onto his and eat it. And I guess that too is that's his poverty speaking, his early poverty.
Yeah, no, well, you can speak to this more. I think he was very, very hungry when he was a child, literally starving all the time, no food in the house. Then he was dumped with his grandmother, who was even worse in many ways than his mother and father, and completely neglected him. I think he was scrabbling for food. So his whole life, not related to actual hunger, he just didn't stop eating.
Oh,
he ate the food
interesting.
Food off my plate and everyone else's plate. But I think that hunger translated itself into love. He was starving for love, starving for the need to be embraced and cared for and adopted and loved and nurtured, because he didn't feel that way, because he wasn't. And so when we married, all those feelings came up in him and he couldn't bear it. So he had to remove himself or make you remove him.
He had to drive you away.
Yeah.
To squash
yes.
It's the great dramatic irony. The reason it's worth making a TV series about something so personal to Dyan is that he did the very worst thing he could do. He sought love and validation from strangers. He created this avatar, this creature on the screen, excuse me, that the whole world fell in love with. And all it did was make things worse. And we've both seen it with famous people. People who get fame, it just makes them feel more hollow. And the irony being, when he gave all that up and stopped trying to make the world love him and actually had a child and started to love her, that's when the beginning of some kind of healing began. So that thing.
Man.
And we look at people today. There are people who are adored. People come through our screens, there's our phones, our pads. There are millions of people in the world now who are globally famous and worshipped and adored. We measure it numerically with the number of followers that they have, and how many of their lives in any way tally with their public image.
We look at it, oh, isn't their life wonderful? Oh, their life is, oh, I wish we were them. No, it's a good lesson.
That's why it's such a good series, because it's honest and it shows you that people aren't what they seem to be, especially as you call him, Jason, this avatar. A silly question. Dyan, did you provide any of the old clothes or any old items from the 60s for the film?
No, just some old memories, which were very
That's plenty.
dig up at times. But
Yeah.
I have to say it, I am so grateful. I am so grateful that Jason played Cary, because this man really, it wasn't surface. He worked to find out who this man was, his heart, his soul, his misgivings, his temperament, and he nailed him. It was
Yes.
a lot of people were frightened to even think of doing. And Jason really did it. I mean, he let himself become what Cary was. I look at the screen of some of those scenes and it's so sometimes so hard for me to watch, because it was so real and so well done.
Thank you for this lovely, lovely series. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, see you again.
How do you create a character? How do you become someone else?
It's a very good question. A lot of people think I don't. They think I just played myself. Well, I can't play Bing Crosby. I'm Cary Grant. But I'll confess something to you. He is a character. Cary Grant, I made him up. I made up the perfect man in order to survive.